Hello everyone, before we begin today's video, I need your help. We've noticed that the channel is losing traction, and subscribing is one of the best ways you can help us. It's quick, free, and allows us to continue bringing you great content. Your support means everything. Let's keep this channel growing collectively. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now let's return to our main character. It was 5 minutes before the most anticipated fashion show of the year. Cameras were rolling. Models in heels taller than Eliza's monthly rent lined up backstage. And in the middle of all that chaos, a yellow mop bucket. Rolling. Right into the edge of the runway. Eliza gasped. "I'm so sorry," she blurted, yanking the mop back. But it was too late. One heel slipped. A model fell with a loud thud. Gasps echoed through the room. The bucket tipped. Water spilled like a scandal across the freshly waxed floor. Alexander Cole, founder of Colex, stood just 30 feet away. He turned. His icy blue eyes locked onto the scene. "Eliza," a stage manager hissed. "You weren't supposed to be here. Who told you to clean this zone?" "Two thought they said this side was clear." From across the room, Alexander took one step forward. His voice sliced through the murmurs. "Who is responsible for this?" Everyone turned. Eliza froze. Her hands still gripping the mop. Her heart louder than the techno music in the background. "To him, sir," she managed. He walked over slowly. Each step felt like a verdict. The cameras hadn't stopped. Neither had the whispers. She ruined it. That's the help? Why is she even near the models? Cole's gonna fire her on the spot. Alexander stopped just 2 feet from her. "You do realize," he said coldly, "that this segment was meant for Vogue's livestream?" "Two didn't mean to. I was just trying to do my job. Your job was to stay out of the spotlight. Not create one." Behind him, his assistant leaned in. "We've got less than 4 minutes. What now?" Alexander didn't answer. He just stared at Eliza. Like she was a math equation that didn't add up. A soaked runway. A stained silk gown. One made with trembling hands and something else in her eyes. Not fear. Not shame. Something more dangerous. Conviction. "Sir," she said quietly, "I can fix it." That made him blink. "You've done enough." But Eliza didn't step back. She pulled a tiny sewing kit from her apron pocket. "Let me at least save the dress. The hem's only torn, not ruined. I can stitch it in 2 minutes. You sew? My grandma taught me. I used to design dresses before this." She looked down at her mop, then back up at him. Eyes steady. Alexander turned to his assistant. "Where's the ruined piece?" "In makeup room. Still damp." "Bring it." Eliza didn't move. Neither did Alexander. And for a long second, the entire crew watched a maid in scuffed sneakers hold her ground against a millionaire in Italian leather. The fabric arrived. Eliza sat on a makeup stool, the model still in half makeup watching in silence. With practiced hands, Eliza threaded the needle. 1 minute. The model stood. Twirled. The hem flawless. Invisible. Like nothing had happened. The head stylist gasped. "That's better than the original cut." Alexander didn't speak. He just looked at Eliza again. Not as a mistake. But as a puzzle. "You. Come with me," he said finally. "To clean up?" "To backstage." He walked off. Eliza stood frozen. Then slowly followed. not knowing she was about to walk into her second disaster of the night, one that would either end her job or begin her legacy. Eliza followed him through a maze of velvet curtains and perfume-heavy air. Every step felt like walking deeper into a world that didn't belong to her. Heels clicked around her. Flashbulbs popped in the distance. She adjusted her apron, suddenly too aware of the coffee stain near her pocket. Alexander didn't speak. He didn't even look back. They stopped near the designer's prep room. "Wait here," he said curtly. Eliza stood by a rack of gowns that smelled like money and dry shampoo. Models brushed past her like she was a coat hanger. But she didn't flinch. Instead, she reached up and adjusted one dress that was slipping off its hanger. "Don't touch that," a voice snapped. She turned. A tall blonde woman, clipboard in hand. Fierce eyes. Tight bun. Only authorized personnel handle the designs. "I was just helping." "I know who you are," the woman said coldly. "You're the maid who almost crashed Fashion Week." Eliza looked away. But before the woman could continue, Alexander reappeared. "Eliza, come inside." The woman's eyes widened. "You're letting her into the prep room?" Alexander didn't answer. Inside, sketches were pinned across the wall. Fabric swatches like candy covered every table. A mannequin stood near the center bare, missing a dress. "That model, the one you stitched up," Alexander began. "She's our closing walk." Eliza's eyes widened. "You mean the finale?" He nodded. "And the original gown's ruined. She doesn't want a backup." "So what do we do?" He looked at her. "You tell me." Eliza blinked. "Me? You said you used to design." Her throat tightened. "Too sketched for fun." "I never." He handed her a pencil. "Then now's your chance to try." Eliza stared at the paper. Her hand shook at first, but the lines came fast. Flowing, layered. Something bold, dramatic, unexpected. She looked up. "This is crazy." "Everything in this room is," Alexander said. "Let's make it crazier." He called in a seamstress. "Follow this design. 30 minutes. And he pointed at Eliza, supervises." The woman scoffed. "Her? Are you serious?" Alexander's tone dropped. "Deadly." Eliza watched the flurry begin. Fabric cut, pleats shaped, rhinestones flying. For the first time in years, she wasn't holding a mop. She was holding the room. 28 minutes later, the dress was ready. Minimal. Flowing. With a fierce asymmetrical cut that shimmered under light. The model changed. Walked out. Silence. Even the fierce blonde clipboard woman exhaled. "That is stunning." Alexander turned to Eliza. "You just saved my finale." She tried to smile, but her lips trembled. "Then I'm not fired?" He paused. "Not yet." Her smile broke free until a camera flashed from the curtain. Then another. Whispers. "Eliza," someone called. She turned. A tabloid blogger, backstage pass dangling from his neck. "I saw the whole thing." "Who are you?" "I'm no one," she said quickly. But Alexander stepped forward. "She's the one who fixed what my top stylist couldn't." More flashes. A reporter whispered, "Is she your new muse?" Eliza's heart skipped. Alexander said nothing. Just looked at her. A long, unreadable look. And outside, the show's final music began to rise. "Come," he said. "To the runway?" "No," he murmured. "To watch what you created shine." But as they walked toward the curtain, neither noticed the clipboard woman texting someone quietly, "Problem. The maid is getting too close." Eliza stood at the edge of the curtain. Just inches from the runway. From the lights, from the world she never thought she'd touch. She held her breath as the final model stepped out wearing the dress Eliza had sketched in less than 5 minutes. Her heart thundered louder than the music. Gasps erupted from the crowd. Phones rose. Cameras clicked. The dress shimmered like a secret revealed under spotlight. Eliza didn't blink. Alexander, standing beside her, didn't say a word. But his eyes never left the model. When the finale walk ended, the applause was instant, then rising, then erupting. Backstage, the crew was frozen. "She did that," someone whispered. "The maid," another voice muttered. Eliza felt her face burn. But Alexander turned to her. "You should see the front row," he said. "I don't belong there." "Neither did I. Once." She looked at him. He wasn't smiling. But he wasn't cold either. Before she could reply, the curtain burst open. The blonde woman with the clipboard pushed through. "There's a problem." Alexander raised an eyebrow. "What now?" She looked directly at Eliza. This maid's not authorized. She broke multiple safety rules. We can't have her representing Colex." Eliza stiffened. Alexander's jaw tightened. "I decide who represents Colex." The woman crossed her arms. "She was mopping the floor 2 hours ago. Now she's in our prep room, designing gowns? That's not how fashion houses work." Eliza stepped back, voice quiet. "She's right. I didn't mean to cross any lines. I was just brilliant," Alexander cut in. "You were brilliant." The blonde snapped, "Our sponsors already asked who designed the final look. What should I tell them? Our maid had a creative moment?" Alexander looked at Eliza. "Tell them her name." "Eliza Walker." The woman's eyes narrowed. "Fine. But you'll deal with the board. And the press. And the backlash when they find out your brand is being hijacked by someone without a degree or a resume." Alexander didn't flinch. "Eliza isn't the problem." The woman turned and walked away, heels sharp as her tone. But Eliza's voice was small. "She's not wrong. I don't belong here." Alexander leaned closer. "You think this industry was built by polished resumes? It was built by people who bled into their designs." Eliza looked down at her hands. Still slightly stained with mop water. Still trembling. Suddenly, a phone rang. Loud. Alexander's assistant rushed over. "Sir. There's a press request, Vogue. They want to interview the new designer behind the finale look." Alexander turned to Eliza. Her eyes widened. "No. I can't." "I'm not, you are," he said simply. But just as he reached for her shoulder, a voice cut through the hallway. "Alexander Cole." Everyone turned. A man in a navy suit stepped forward. Sharp. Tall. With the same eyes as Alexander but colder. "Father," Alexander said flatly. The man stopped inches from them. "I saw the live stream." "What the hell are you doing?" "She saved the show." She embarrassed the name. "Letting a hotel maid stitch the finale gown? Are you mad?" Eliza swallowed. Alexander didn't back down. "She's got more instinct than half our team." His father's eyes narrowed at Eliza. "What's your background, girl?" "2 studied design in high school. I dropped out of fashion school. My mom got sick." The man said. "Pity and mops. Very on brand." Eliza stepped back. Alexander moved forward. "Don't." His father raised an eyebrow. "You want your inheritance, don't you? Or should I rewrite the will right now? The hallway fell silent. Eliza's heart sank. Alexander clenched his jaw. Then turned to her. Eliza. Step outside for a moment. She hesitated. Then nodded. Walked away, each step heavier than the last. As she turned the corner, she heard his voice again, low. Angry. Controlled. But she didn't hear what he said next. She just knew whatever came after tonight, it wasn't going to be simple. Eliza leaned against the cool wall, just beyond the curtain. Applause still echoed from the runway. But inside her, everything was quiet. Too quiet. She tried to catch her breath. Tried to slow her thoughts. Maybe I pushed too far, she whispered to herself. Maybe this was all a mistake. A makeup artist walked past her. Didn't look. Didn't nod. Back to invisible. A few minutes later, the door opened. Alexander stepped out. He looked different. Not angry. Not smug. Just tired. Everything okay? She asked, unsure. He didn't answer immediately. He wants me to drop you. Eliza's lips parted. Oh. He says if I don't remove you from the spotlight, I lose my voting rights in the board. And the brand. She looked at him. No pressure, right? A tiny smile flickered on his lips. But it didn't last. Why are you still here? He asked. She blinked. Because you told me to wait. No, he stepped closer. I mean here, in this world. This pressure. This judgment. You could have walked away hours ago. Eliza took a deep breath. Because I saw my sketch come to life. She paused. And because for the first time, I didn't feel poor. Alexander stared at her. You weren't. They stood in silence. Then a knock. A tap. Light, but urgent. His assistant peeked through the hallway. Sir, the Vogue reporter is still waiting. They're asking about Eliza. And the board already saw the live coverage. Alexander nodded. Tell Vogue she'll be there in 5 minutes. The assistant raised an eyebrow. Yes, sir. When they were alone again, Eliza hesitated. Alexander, I don't want to be your problem. You're not. I mean, I don't want to be your statement, either. Some Cinderella moment to prove a point. He looked at her. Hard. Then what do you want? She exhaled. Slowly. I want to design. I want to make clothes that make people feel seen. And if I mess up, I want it to be my mess. Not a charity case. He tilted his head. Sounds stubborn. I get that a lot. He almost smiled again. Then handed her a badge. Put this on. She looked down. It read Collex guest designer Eliza Walker. Her fingers trembled. I'm not a guest. You are now. She blinked fast. Looked away. She couldn't cry. Not here. Not now. He offered his arm. Ready for your first press ambush? She looped her arm through his. Only if you promise not to correct my grammar. No promises. They walked into the media room. Flashbulbs exploded. Dozens of voices shouted. Eliza, how did you go from janitor to designer? Is this real or a PR stunt? Mr. Cole, is she your new creative leader, your girlfriend? That one made Eliza stumble. Alexander's jaw tightened, but he didn't flinch. Next question, he said calmly. The Vogue reporter stepped forward. Her blazer sharp, her smile sharper. Eliza, where do you see yourself in 1 year? Eliza paused. In 1 year? She looked around. The lights. The cameras. The chaos. Then back at Alexander. Hopefully not cleaning runways. But maybe walking them. Gasps. Laughter. Applause. Even the Vogue reporter chuckled. Spoken like a true fashion rebel. The interview ended. The noise faded. Alexander leaned toward her. You handled that better than I expected. Maybe I'm full of surprises. But just as they were about to leave, his phone buzzed. He looked down. Message: board meeting moved to tonight. Vote on creative direction. No guests. He exhaled. Duty calls. Eliza nodded. You should go. He looked at her. You'll be okay? She raised an eyebrow. I was okay before you. I'll be okay after. He stared at her a second longer than necessary. Then walked away. Eliza watched him disappear into the private elevator. Alone again. But this time not invisible. She turned to leave and didn't notice the blonde woman watching from the shadows. Phone in hand. Voice low. She's getting too confident. Time to remind her where she came from. The next morning, Eliza arrived at Collex headquarters early. Too early. The lobby still smelled like polished marble and lavender air freshener. She clutched the guest badge Alexander had given her, still not sure if she should wear it or frame it. But the receptionist barely glanced up. Eliza Walker? Yes? You've been moved to the third floor. Office 3B. Moved? She had never even had a desk. She took the elevator. Heart fluttering. Maybe this was real. Maybe she was finally getting a place. But when she opened the office door, she stopped. On the desk, a printed stack of emails. Subject line: unauthorized access. Eliza Walker screenshots. Internal logs. One headline circled in red: Maid hijacks fashion show. A note sat on top. The board is watching. One mistake, and you're out. Her fingers trembled. Footsteps behind her. She turned. It was the blonde woman from backstage. Clipboard gone. Smile sharp. I warned him, the woman said. You don't belong here. Eliza stayed quiet. I don't care how cute your little sketches are. You're a PR risk. A walking accident. And the board agrees. I didn't do anything wrong. You don't have to. All it takes is one whisper, one headline, and Alexander will drop you faster than last season's prince. Eliza stepped closer. Are you the one leaking to the press? The woman didn't blink. I don't need to. People love a downfall. Especially when it's someone who didn't earn it. Eliza's throat tightened. I earned it. I worked. I stayed up nights. I didn't steal this. The woman tilted her head. No, darling. You just got lucky. And luck runs out. She walked away. Eliza stared at the stack of papers. Headlines. Accusations. Rumors. Somebody was trying to destroy her. And she had no idea if Alexander would believe them. By noon, the whispers had started. 2 interns passed her in the hallway. She's the maid, right? Designer now, apparently. For like 5 minutes. Another one muttered, I heard she hacked the system to get her dress approved. Eliza kept walking. Eyes forward. Back straight. But inside, she was breaking. Later that day, Alexander finally returned from the board meeting. His assistant handed him the folder. He flipped through the headlines. Frowned. Who printed this? The assistant hesitated. They were already on her desk this morning. He didn't speak. Just stared at the cover page. A still frame from the live stream. Eliza standing beside him, smiling. The caption read, "Colex CEO chooses Maid over models?" That evening, Eliza waited outside his office. She had no appointment. No invitation. Just a sinking feeling she couldn't shake. At 6:47 p.m., the door opened. He stepped out. Paused when he saw her. "Eliza. I need to ask you something." He looked tired. He didn't invite her in. "Did you believe them?" she asked quietly. "Believe who?" "The people saying I don't belong. That I cheated my way in. That I'm embarrassing your brand." Alexander's expression stayed unreadable. "I didn't leak anything," she added quickly. "I didn't fake credentials. I didn't lie." "I know." She blinked. "You do? But the board doesn't care. To them, you're a risk." Her stomach dropped. "So that's it?" He looked at her. "I told them I'd handle it." Her voice cracked. "Handle me?" "Eliza, no. Just tell me. Are you protecting me or getting ready to walk away quietly?" He didn't answer right away. And that silence was louder than anything he could have said. She nodded. "Thank you for the truth." Eliza, wait, but she was already walking down the hallway. Away from the office. Away from the only door that had opened for her. And maybe away from him. Behind her, Alexander stood frozen. Phone still in his hand. Notification blinking. Board notice, emergency PR meeting scheduled. Subject Eliza Walker. And in the dark corner of the hallway the blonde woman smiled. Eliza didn't come back the next day. Or the day after that. The desk outside Alexander's office was empty. No coffee cup. No color-coded folders. No quiet humming of 90s pop songs under her breath. Just silence. And Alexander hated silence. At the Monday board meeting, the room was colder than usual. 12 members. 12 opinions. One target. "We've reviewed the headlines," one director said. "The public is divided. Some adore the Cinderella story, others think it's a stunt," another added. "A maid becoming a designer overnight? It reeks of desperation." Alexander didn't flinch. "She saved the show." "Maybe. But we're not a charity, Mr. Cole. Investors want stability. They don't want emotional experiments." He leaned forward. "She didn't ask for attention. We gave it to her. And when she shined, we punished her for it." A beat of silence. Then the eldest board member cleared his throat. "Your father has expressed concerns. He thinks you're letting personal feelings cloud executive judgment." Alexander stared at the table. Then stood. "Cancel the press conference. I won't throw her under the bus to protect your PR." He left the room without waiting for permission. No one followed. That night, he went back to the hotel. The same service hallway where she used to mop. The same break room where she kept instant noodles in her locker. But she wasn't there. The janitor shrugged. She quit. Left a note. No forwarding address. Alexander clenched his jaw. A part of him had hoped that she'd still be here. Somehow. That she hadn't completely walked away. He sat on the bench outside. The air was thick with city dust and regret. He pulled out his phone. No messages. No missed calls. Just the last text he'd never sent, "You're more than a moment, Eliza." He put the phone away. But he couldn't put her away. 3 days later, the brand's official Instagram posted something strange. A photo of a red sketchpad on a fire escape. Under it, a caption, "Design isn't where you start. It's what you survive." EW. The post went viral in under an hour. Comments poured in, "Is this Eliza Walker? She's alive? Where is she now?" Alexander stared at the post. Then zoomed into the brick pattern behind the notebook. His eyes narrowed. 2 hours later, he was in the South End warehouse district. Run down, forgotten except for one corner studio with the lights still on. He climbed the fire escape. At the top, a single door stood slightly ajar. Inside, fabric on every surface. Thread spools stacked like towers. And at the center, a girl with a messy bun and a pencil between her teeth. "Eliza," he said softly. She turned. Didn't look surprised. "Hi." He stepped inside slowly. "This is where you've been hiding?" "Not hiding," she said. "Building." He looked around. Dozens of sketches. Raw. Gritty. Real. "All of this since you left?" "Since I was 12, she said. "These are just the first ones I believed in enough to show." He picked up a design. Minimalist streetwear with couture lines. "You belong at Collex." She shook her head. "Collex didn't want me. They wanted the story." "No," he said firmly. "They wanted a headline. I wanted you." Eliza's breath caught. "You chose silence, Alexander." "I chose wrong." She looked away. He stepped closer. "I never told you what happened after you left. I shut down the smear campaign. I told the board to fire me before they fired you." She blinked. "You did?" He nodded. "I lost votes. Investors pulled back. But you know what I realized?" "What?" "I've never been this close to the truth until I met someone who stitched it into a dress when no one was watching." Silence. "I don't need saving," she whispered. "I know. I need you. Not to fix the company. But to remind me why I started." Her eyes softened. "I'm not going back as a pity project. You'll come back as a designer. On your terms. And my name stays on every piece I touch. Front and center." A pause. "And I want a window. In the office," she added. He grinned. "I'll break a wall if I have to." Finally she smiled. Then walked toward the sewing machine. "One condition," she said, threading the needle. "What's that?" "No more silence. You have something to say it." Alexander nodded. "I will." But even as she turned away he stayed 1 second longer, watching the girl who'd turned his empire upside down. And maybe saved him from himself. 3 weeks later, Collex launched its boldest campaign yet. From stains to stitches, the Eliza Walker line, the teaser featured no models. Just hands brown, calloused, stitching bright red thread on white fabric. The final frame, a sketchpad being closed. Her initials on the cover. Inside the industry, shockwaves followed. Harper's Mode called it reckless branding. The Tartan Review labeled it a publicity gamble. But online? Eliza Walker was trending for the 3rd day in a row. From Maid to Muse, Eliza Effect, Collex Rebel fashion students posted recreations of her street couture mix. Makeup artists copied her signature, bare face, bold lip look, and one viral tweet read, "She didn't break into fashion. She rethreaded the whole industry." Inside Collex HQ, things weren't as glowing. Alexander watched the numbers climb: likes, shares, pre-orders. But inside the boardroom? Tension thickened like starch in still water. "She has no formal training," one board member hissed. "She's a liability." What if she makes another mistake? Alexander didn't flinch. She's not a liability. She's our future. And what happens when the hype fades? Then we keep building, he said. With someone who actually cares. The vote was split. But Alexander didn't wait. By the end of the day, a new title was added to the Collex directory. Co-creative director Eliza Walker. Her first day back, she wore jeans and a t-shirt. No makeup. No designer shoes. Just a sketchpad in hand and a quiet confidence that came from surviving chaos. She passed by the same receptionist who once ignored her. This time, the woman stood. Ms. Walker, welcome back. Eliza nodded. Didn't smile. Didn't stop. In her new office, sunlight poured through the window Alexander had promised. A real desk. A vision board. And a coat rack already holding the stitched-up dress from her first show. She touched the hem. Still strong. Still hers. That afternoon, her calendar was full. Press interviews. Design meetings. A concept review with the marketing team. But she only looked forward to one thing: her presentation. The next season's concept. The first pitch she'd ever lead, not as a helper but as a voice. Alexander sat in the front row. So did the board. So did the woman with the clipboard, her name now known: Kendra Vaughn, head of PR. Eliza clicked the remote. The lights dimmed. Good afternoon, she began. Her voice steady. Clear. This line isn't just about fabric. It's about fear. About starting in the shadows and choosing to step into the light anyway. Slide after slide, she presented not just clothes but stories. Each look inspired by people like her. The maid. The waitress. The assistant no one noticed. Every stitch held meaning. One board member whispered, "She's really good." Another nodded. Alexander just smiled quietly, proud. But Kendra? She stayed stone-faced. Until the final slide. Eliza took a breath. And finally, this dress, she said, pointing to a dramatic black and white piece with red accents. It's called Reputation. Because sometimes, you don't have to fix what they say, you just have to own it louder. A beat of silence. Applause. Scattered at first. Then rising. Even a few board members stood. Kendra did not. She simply turned to Alexander and whispered, "She's winning them over." He replied without turning. She already did. Later that night, Eliza stood alone on the rooftop. City lights below. Fabric samples in her hands. Alexander joined her quietly. "You killed it," he said. She smiled. "I wasn't sure I could." "You did more than that. You reminded them what fashion used to be about." "People?" He nodded. "Not products. Not politics. Just people." She turned to him. "Do you think they'll ever really accept me?" "They already did." "No. I mean you." His eyes met hers. "I never stopped." A pause. Then his hand reached for hers, slow, unsure. But she didn't pull away. And in that quiet moment, amid the rooftop winds and city hums, the girl who once spilled water on a runway stood taller than the skyline. It started with a headline. Exclusive: Eliza Walker's troubled past, the family she tried to hide. By noon, it was everywhere. Celebrity blogs. Fashion tabloids. Even mainstream morning shows. A picture of Eliza, barefaced, 17, standing outside a rundown trailer in Mississippi. Under it, a caption, "Daughter of convicted fraudster, Collex's new face isn't so clean." Inside Collex HQ, the silence was louder than ever. Eliza sat in her office. The light through her big designer window didn't feel warm today. Just harsh. She stared at the screen. At her father's mugshot. She hadn't seen that photo in years. Arrested for insurance fraud. A story that drowned their family in debt and shame. Eliza had dropped out of design school the same week. She closed the laptop. Her hands trembled. A knock at the door. Alexander. She didn't stand. Didn't speak. He sat across from her. You saw it? She nodded. He waited. I thought I buried this, she whispered. He was quiet for a beat. Do you want me to respond? She shook her head. They want a scandal. If we answer, it becomes a war. Alexander frowned. The board's already nervous. Kendra wants to hold a press conference. She's loving this, Eliza muttered. He didn't deny it. I can shield you, he offered. But Eliza stood. I don't need shielding, I need truth. That evening, she posted something on her personal page. No filter. No photo shoot. Just a selfie in her office. Bare-faced. Honest. Caption: Yes, that's my dad. Yes, he made mistakes. Yes, I still carry his last name. Because I also carry the choice to do better. Judge me for my work. Or walk away. It exploded. 50K likes in 30 minutes. Comments split in two. Queen. Owned it. Doesn't change the fact she's a fraud's daughter. Respect went up 1,000. Still not designer material. The next morning, boardroom again. Kendra walked in holding a printed copy of the post. She's emotional, she said, voice crisp. She should have waited. Let us manage the message. Alexander crossed his arms. She told the truth. The brand should stand behind her. We're not in the business of therapy, Alexander. We're in luxury. Reputation is everything. He looked her dead in the eyes. Then it's time luxury stopped being afraid of real people. Kendra slammed the file down. She's dragging us into scandal. Alexander didn't blink. She's dragging us into the future. Back in her office, Eliza waited. No one spoke to her all morning. No press. No reporters. Not even assistants. Until an envelope slid under her door. Inside a handwritten note. Thank you. For speaking. For staying. My sister showed me your post. She cried. She's 16. And she thinks maybe she can be something too. Eliza exhaled. Then stood. Walked straight into the main floor. Heads turned. People whispered. She passed Kendra without a word. Straight into the main showroom where final preparations for Fashion Week were underway. Alexander stood at the center. She walked up. I want to design the opening look. He raised an eyebrow. You sure? Yes. Pause. Make it personal. She smiled faintly. Oh, I will. 2 weeks later, New York Fashion Week. Colex's tent buzzed with whispers. Is she coming? Will they pull her last minute? I heard the board wanted her off the lineup. Backstage, Eliza stood in silence. The model in front of her wore white. A simple, powerful silhouette. No jewels. No noise. But hand-stitched into the back hemline just one word. Redemption. The lights dimmed. And then music. The model walked. Gasps. Cameras. Applause. It wasn't flashy. It wasn't loud. But it said everything. Online, it exploded. Is this her answer to the scandal? Who else could turn shame into silk? She just took control of her narrative and won. Backstage, Kendra stood frozen. Alexander turned to her. Still think she's emotional? Kendra didn't answer. She just walked away. And Eliza? She stood beside the curtain. Not hiding. Not shrinking. This time she belonged. The Monday after Fashion Week, Eliza's inbox exploded. Subject lines stacked like praise and temptation. Maison Elon collaboration inquiry, Vogue guest editorship offer, immediate response requested, Chanel interested in future capsule W. Eliza Walker, and the Nun subject stood out in bold, global director role, Milan residency confidential. She clicked. A private offer from Linea Aurea, one of Europe's most revered heritage houses. They wanted her to lead a new division: design, storytelling, branding. Full creative control. 7-figure salary. Worldwide influence. And at the bottom, one final line: note, exclusive contract. Requires full separation from Colex and all subsidiaries. Her fingers froze on the trackpad. Later that day, she found Alexander in the rooftop greenhouse. He was watering a dying orchid. She walked up quietly. They offered me Milan. He didn't turn around. When? This morning. Silence. They want you to leave Colex. Still no eye contact. Yes. And are you going to? She hesitated. This is everything I thought I wanted. He nodded slowly. But is it everything you are? That made her pause. I don't know anymore, she admitted. He finally turned. His voice low. When I gave you that window office, I didn't do it for the press. I did it because I thought if anyone could teach this place to breathe again, it was you. I'm not ungrateful. I never said you were. More silence. Then she added, but maybe I was meant to build something bigger. He looked down. Bigger doesn't always mean better. And then just like the walked away. That night, Eliza stared at the contract again. The numbers blurred. The offer felt like a crown and a chain. 2 days later, Linea Aurea sent their team to New York. They booked a private dinner. 5-star rooftop, skyline view, a table of executives and one empty chair for her. She wore all black. Simple. Powerful. They toasted champagne before she Saturday. Our board is unanimous, the CEO said. We want to give you everything Colex can't. One executive leaned in. You'll never be someone's discovery here. You'll be the force. She smiled. But her hand stayed still on her lap. Then came the final pitch: we have one condition. Total separation from your previous brand. And full rights to your upcoming redemption line. Her breath caught. The entire line? It's necessary. We can't risk confusion. And Alexander? He'll survive, someone said casually. He always does. That did it. Eliza stood up. Quietly. No, the table blinked. I'm sorry, the CEO asked. No. I won't sell my name. I won't sell my story. She looked them all in the eye. I bled into that line. I stitched pain into art. And I shared it with the world on my terms. A pause. I don't need Milan to matter. She turned and walked away. No drama. No anger. Just clarity. The next morning, Alexander arrived at HQ early. Eliza's office door was open. She sat at her desk, sketching. He froze. I thought you left. I almost did. He said nothing. She looked up. I said no. He blinked. To Milan? To selling myself. His jaw clenched slightly. Why? Because I built something here. With you. With my truth. And I'm not done yet. He stepped inside. Paused. You really came back? She smiled faintly. I never truly left. And for the first time since she'd walked into his world he exhaled. No power plays. No press strategy. Just peace. Then she added, oh, and I have a proposal. He raised an eyebrow. A merger? A rebellion. She turned her sketchpad. On it a raw, fierce design titled The Uninvited for every woman who wasn't asked in it showed up anyway. He stared at it. Then her. You're dangerous, Eliza Walker. She grinned. Only when I'm underestimated. 2 weeks later, the invitation arrived. An ivory envelope, sealed with gold foil. La Nuit de Mode Global Fashion Gala, the most prestigious event in haute couture. Everyone who was someone would be there. Designers. Editors. Royals. Eliza opened hers. Her name printed cleanly. Ms. Eliza Walker guest, table 18B, secondary talent row. She stared at the words. Secondary. Not creative director. Not speaker. Not even front row. Just guest. That night, Alexander walked into her office. You got it? She nodded. They put me in the back, she said flatly. He raised an eyebrow. Still want to go? She hesitated. Yes, because I deserve to be seen. Even if it's from the shadows. He studied her. Quiet. Then simply said, wear red. The night of the gala, the hotel ballroom was drenched in opulence. Crystals. Silk. Photographers shoulder to shoulder. Designers in custom tuxedos. Models like marble statues. And then Eliza arrived. Wearing a crimson gown. Sleek. Sculpted. Draped with hand-stitched details like fire-licking silk. The crowd turned. Whispers sparked. That's her. Eliza Walker. She's stunning. But as she walked toward her assigned table someone stopped her. The coordinator. There's been a seating adjustment, she said quickly. Eliza frowned. Am I being moved further back? No, ma'am, the woman said, smiling nervously. You're going to the main stage table. Front of the room. Eliza blinked. I wasn't on that list. The woman whispered, you are now. At the center of the ballroom, near the stage sat the industry giants. Maison Elan. Dior. McKinsey Style Council. And now, one name card slid silently into place. Eliza Walker, Collex co-creative director. She approached, stunned. People stared. Some smiled politely. Others didn't hide their confusion. Then, a murmur. Heads turned. Alexander Cole entered. In a dark suit. No tie. Walking like he owned the floor but not looking at anyone except her. He walked to her side. Slid her chair out for her. And when she sat, he didn't leave. He took the seat beside her. The MC cleared his throat. And now, before we begin our awards, a tribute to those changing the fabric of fashion not with legacy, but with courage. The lights dimmed. A video played. Clips of runway moments. Then Eliza. Sketching. Sewing. Saving the finale show. Then her quote, design isn't where you start. It's what you survive. The crowd gasped. Some clapped. Others stayed frozen. And then Alexander stood. Took the mic. I wasn't on the speaker list tonight, he said. But I'll make it brief. He turned to the audience. To those who still think legacy means old money, look again. He glanced at Eliza. To me, legacy means building something that outlives fear. He raised his glass to the girl who was never invited but changed the entire room. The ballroom was silent. Applause. Real. Roaring. Reluctant for some. Reverent for others. Eliza's throat tightened. Tears threatened. But she didn't let them fall. Not here. Not tonight. Instead, she turned to him and whispered, "You didn't have to do that." "I know. But you did." He looked at her. Soft. Certain. "I will. Every time." And for the first time since this wild, impossible journey began, she didn't feel like the poor maid who ruined a runway. She felt like what she truly was, a woman who had stitched her name into history. The morning after the gala, Eliza's face was everywhere. Magazine covers. Fashion blogs. Business podcasts. Eliza Walker steals the spotlight, the uninvited queen now rules. Redemption in red. The night Colex became hers, her inbox filled with requests. The industry didn't whisper anymore. It roared. But success had a scent. And like sharks to blood, the power players circled. 2 days later, Alexander called a partners' meeting. He expected celebration. Instead, he got a wall of silence. Then Kendra stood. "Let's be honest," she said crisply. "Eliza Walker is no longer a rising star. She's a threat." Alexander narrowed his eyes. "To what?" "To the balance," she snapped. "She's overshadowing the Colex name. Everything now is Eliza Walker this and Eliza Walker that. Even the investors are asking if she's the real creative force." "She is," Alexander said. "Then what are you?" Kendra challenged. "The figurehead? The boyfriend?" The room went quiet. Alexander exhaled. "This is not a power competition." Kendra raised an eyebrow. "Isn't it?" She slid a folder onto the table. "Here. Market reports. 3 major retailers want to sign Eliza exclusively without Colex." That night, Eliza found Alexander on the rooftop again. Same orchid. Still struggling. "You okay?" she asked. He didn't answer immediately. "They're trying to peel you away." She nodded. "I heard. I won't stop you." She looked at him. "Do you want me to go?" "No," he said. "But I want you to choose to stay." She stepped closer. "I'm not a puppet, Alexander." "I know. But I'm not just your project either." "I never said you were. But some people, they only see me as the girl you rescued." His voice was tight. "And what do you see yourself as?" She took a breath. "A builder." He smiled faintly. "Then let's build. But together." 3 days later, Colex unveiled their next campaign. Duality, a line by Eliza Alexander. Every look had 2 versions. Street meets elegance. Harsh meets soft. Masculine meets vulnerable. It was revolutionary, but not everyone was happy. Behind the scenes, one designer stormed out. "I submitted that silhouette last year. Now it's hers?" Another griped, "I've worked at Colex for 8 years. She shows up, and now she's co-director?" Whispers brewed. Then turned into slander. A leaked photo. Eliza walking out of Alexander's penthouse at dawn. Tabloids ran wild. Affair or favoritism? Is Colex becoming a love brand, not a fashion house? Kendra seized it. She called an emergency board vote. "Eliza must step down," she said. "She's compromising the brand's objectivity." Alexander stood. "If she goes, I go." The room stirred. But Kendra smiled coolly. Then perhaps it's time to test how strong her name is without yours. Eliza found out from a text. Not from Alexander. Not from the board. Just a headline. Colleagues to restructure creative leadership. Eliza Walker's role under review. She stared at the screen. Then slowly turned off her phone. That night, she didn't go to the office. She didn't go home either. She walked. 4 hours. Through alleyways, through old neighborhoods, past storefronts she used to clean. Until she found herself back in front of the hotel. The same one where this all began. The janitor still worked the lobby. He looked up. Smiled. Eliza? She nodded. Still cleaning floors? He grinned. Still dreaming above M. She laughed softly. Then asked, "Mind if I sit for a while?" He nodded to the mop cart. "Take the throne." So she did. And for the first time in weeks she breathed. No cameras. No boardrooms. Just floors. Just fluorescent lights. Just a girl trying to remember who she was before the world tried to crown her or crush her. It happened on a Wednesday. No warning. No farewell. Just a folded letter on Alexander's desk. "I resign." Handwritten. No drama. No blame. Just her name at the bottom. Eliza Walker. He stood there for a long time. Reading it. Rereading it. Like if he stared hard enough, it would vanish. But it didn't. The truth was inked. Final. Firm. She was leaving. That night, she didn't answer his calls. Didn't check messages. Instead, she went home, pulled out her oldest sketchbook, and opened to page 1. A crumpled pencil drawing of a dress made of scraps. She smiled. Sadly. Then picked up a new pen. A clean page. At the top, she wrote, "Walker Atelier." She was starting over. Not from scratch. From scars. The fashion world spun quickly. By Friday, headlines confirmed it. Eliza Walker departs Collex amid creative rift. Red thread breaks. What's next for the runway rebel? Comment sections ignited. She's smart. Time to own her brand. She'll flop without Alexander's backing. I'll buy anything she makes, even a napkin. And in the background, Collex shares wavered. Internally, Kendra tightened her grip. Rebrand everything. Scrub her name. We move forward without her. Alexander didn't object. He just stopped showing up. Eliza didn't give interviews. Didn't chase sympathy. She rented a dusty corner unit in an industrial block. No AC, flickering lights. But it had 2 windows and space for a cutting table. It was enough. She began designing in silence. No corporate deadlines. No boards. No cameras. Just instinct. Weeks passed. Whispers turned to curiosity. Then came a post. A close-up of a crimson thread weaving through raw denim. Caption, "We begin again. Walker Atelier. June 1st. No fanfare. No PR team. Just her. A needle. And the world watching. The day of the launch, the site crashed in 12 minutes. Every piece sold out in 1 hour. Articles flooded in, "The Rise of the Unbranded Queen, Eliza Walker's Independence, a Masterclass in Quiet Power." At Collex, the boardroom was ice. Kendra stood tight-lipped. "She got lucky," someone muttered. Alexander didn't reply. He just closed the laptop. And left the room. That night, he stood outside the old warehouse studio. She was inside working by lamplight, music low. He knocked. She looked up. Paused. Then opened the door. No words. Just eye contact. You look tired, she said. He smiled faintly. You look free. She stepped aside. Let him in. The studio smelled like fabric glue and coffee. He took it all in. You built this fast. I was always building it. I just didn't know I could build it without permission. He nodded. I read your letter. I know. I hated it. I know that too. Silence. Then he asked, why didn't you let me fight for you? She looked at him. You already had to choose between me and the company once. I didn't want you to choose again. He stepped closer. What if I want to? She held her breath. Then whispered, then don't choose me because I left. Choose me because you still see me. He didn't speak. Just reached into his coat pocket. Pulled out something wrapped in silk. She opened it. A red fabric flower. The one from her first collection. He had saved it. She smiled. Tears welled but didn't fall. I do see you, Eliza, he said softly. And I never stopped. For weeks, they worked in secret. No press. No contracts. No board oversight. Just two creatives, one with power in exile, one with freedom finally unchained. Alexander didn't design. He didn't need to. He reviewed patterns. Suggested edits. Sometimes just stood in the corner, watching her flow like ink on silk. They laughed. Fought. Sketched side by side until sunrise. She gave him something Colex never could purpose without performance. Their first joint capsule was coded under a fake name, Thread 21 Raw. Unbranded. Dropped without context, without announcement. Just a link. Every piece bore no name. Just a red thread tucked into the seam. People caught on instantly. This is Eliza's work. Did Colex release this? Is Alexander back? The whispers rose. So did the sales. But so did the scrutiny. And then Kendra found it. A shipment invoice. Addressed to Thread 21. Paid from an offshore fund linked to Alexander Cole. She nearly smiled. Finally. She called an emergency board meeting. Displayed the documents on the screen. Proof, she said, of unethical collusion. He violated non-compete. He's funding an ex-employee's brand in direct competition with Colex. The room buzzed. A lawyer added, this is grounds for full asset freeze and board expulsion. Kendra leaned back. And PR scandal, if we leak it right. The next day, headlines exploded. Ex-Colex CEO secretly bankrolling designer who resigned amid controversy, affair or fraud. Fashion power duo caught in ethics firestorm. Eliza stared at the screen. Fingers frozen. They had her again. But this time, they had him too. She stormed into the studio. Alexander was already rereading the same headline. Why didn't you tell me about the offshore fund? He looked up. Calm. But tired. Because I knew you'd say no. You were right. Eliza, you risked your entire legacy. For what? Some threads? No, he said quietly. For you. She turned away. Paced. They're going to bury you. Freeze your shares. Ruin your name. Then let them. She froze. That's insane. What's insane, he said, voice rising, is pretending I didn't lose everything until I lost you. The company was never the dream, Eliza. You were. She stared at him. Raw. Cracked. Speechless. He stepped closer. I'm not asking for credit. Or even forgiveness. A pause. I'm just asking, don't shut me out now. Tears welled. She whispered, I don't want to lose you too. He reached for her hand. Held it. Strong. Steady. You won't. But Kendra wasn't done. The next morning, she held a press conference. Colex has always stood for ethics and transparency, she began. Unfortunately, Mr. Cole's recent private funding of a competitor involving a designer under active board investigation violates every principle this company was built on. She held up a photo. Grainy. Zoomed in. Alexander and Eliza. Rooftop. Laughing. Effective immediately, we are stripping all remaining titles and privileges. And initiating legal proceedings. The cameras flashed. And in the crowd a young intern live-streamed everything. Within minutes, social media responded, this feels like a takedown. How dare they come after Eliza again? We stand with red thread. I am thread trended globally. Walker Atelier's site crashed from traffic. And then Eliza posted. Just a black square. Captioned, if I must be punished for not abandoning the one who believed in me, then let the world know I stand by Alexander Cole. Not for what he gave me. But for what he never took. Millions shared it. And at Colex? Kendra's smirk faded. This war wasn't ending. It was just beginning. The lawsuit landed like a thunderclap. Colex vs. Walker Atelier et al. Allegations IP theft. Breach of non-compete. Financial collusion. Brand confusion. Damages requested $25 million. Eliza stared at the envelope in her trembling hands. Inside, legal language cold as steel. Outside, the world watched. The media swarmed. Underdog or pirate? Eliza faces her biggest stitch yet, can love survive a legal war? She didn't care about the headlines. But she cared about him. Alexander had gone silent since the filing. No calls. No texts. She knew why. If he showed up now, they'd say he was interfering. If he stayed silent, they'd say he was guilty. Damned either way. Inside the warehouse studio, the air was thick with fear. Interns packed boxes. Assistants whispered about layoffs. The accountant looked pale. 2 weeks, max. After that we can't even pay for thread. Eliza nodded. Quiet. Strong on the outside. Shattered inside, but just when hope frayed, help came from the unlikeliest place. It began with one message. A direct DM on the studio's account, I used to sew buttons for Colex. No health insurance. No voice. Eliza, you made me feel seen. I want to help. I don't have money. But I have time. And hands. Then another. And another. By nightfall, over 300 messages. From former janitors, seamstresses, assistant designers. Many fired. Many invisible. All remembering her. Not as a star. But as someone who looked them in the eye. The next morning, they arrived. One by one. On foot. By train. Carrying thread, scissors, old fabric rolls. An army of quiet hearts and calloused hands. They filled the studio. Brought machines. Built shelves. Organized stock. They didn't ask for anything. Only to help. A volunteer whispered, you gave us a name, Eliza. Let us help protect yours. The press caught wind. News vans circled the block. One outlet called it, the Seamstress Uprising, another dubbed it, Fashion's Real Frontline. We Are Walker trended globally. Donations poured in. Not millions. But enough. Enough to buy time. And hope. And finally Alexander came. He walked through the warehouse like it was sacred ground. Paused as the volunteers looked up. He nodded at them. Then turned to Eliza. "Are you ready to fight this?" he asked. She didn't flinch. "I was born fighting." He handed her a folder. Not legal papers. Blueprints. A plan. A fashion show. But not just any show. Threaded Truth, a collection built by those left behind. Designs based on stories of real workers. Not models makers. No catwalk. No celebrities. Just them. The invisible ones. Elevated. Seen. Kendra saw the press release hours later. Scoffed. "This is desperation," she told the board. But even they looked uneasy. Because the tide wasn't turning. It had already turned. The night of the show, the venue was unconventional, an abandoned garment factory. Cement floors. Rusted beams. Old sewing machines turned into spotlight stands. The audience? Activists. Students. Journalists. Former employees. And in the front row? No royalty. Just a girl in a maid uniform. Symbolic. Intentional. She held a program that read, "We are not mistakes. We are the stitches." Then the show began. Not with music. But with a voice. An old recording, Eliza's mother telling her as a child, "Mending a tear isn't shameful, baby. It just means something was worn. And loved." Models walked out. Not airbrushed. Not rehearsed. Just real people. Real stories. Each wearing clothes stitched by hands that were once ignored. And at the end Eliza walked out. No spotlight. Just silence. The crowd stood. And clapped. Not for glamour. But for truth. The lawsuit still loomed. But that night? She won something bigger. A tribe. A legacy. And maybe a revolution. The courtroom was silent. Sunlight streamed through tall windows, slicing the air into sharp beams. At the front, Eliza sat in a simple black dress. No makeup. No jewelry. Just her. Authentic. And beside her Alexander. Wearing the same suit from their first boardroom together. Across the aisle, Colex's lawyers flanked Kendra. Documents stacked like weapons. She didn't look at Eliza. Didn't have to. She thought she'd already won. The judge entered. Gavel struck wood. "Today, we hear the case of Colex versus Walker Atelier pertaining to claims of intellectual property theft, brand defamation, and breach of contract." The opening arguments began. Colex painted Eliza as reckless. Unprofessional. An emotional wild card hiding behind underdog charm. Their words stung. But she didn't blink. Then it was her turn. Eliza stood. And spoke. No lawyer. No script. Just truth. "I'm not here to defend what I've done," she began. "I'm here to ask the court to look deeper, not at the stitches, but at the hands who made them." She walked slowly. Past the jury. Past Kendra. To Colex, a thread is a logo. To me, it's a life. She held up one of her red-stitched garments. This design wasn't born in a boardroom. It came from late-night shifts. Broken machines. Scarred fingers. She paused. Colex says I stole ideas. But how do you steal pain? How do you copyright survival? The room was still. Some jurors wiped their eyes. Then she said the unthinkable. "I'll drop all claims to the designs. All royalties. All future profit from the Thread 21 capsule. A gasp. Even Alexander turned sharply. But Eliza's voice stayed steady. On one condition, Colex must legally transfer 40 of all future garment profits to a workers' rights trust run by the very hands who made this industry possible. Kendra stood, furious. This is absurd. She's extorting us in public. The judge banged the gavel. Ms. Vaughn, sit down. Eliza added, this is not about money. It's about meaning, about not letting a single maid, janitor, or seamstress ever feel invisible again. The court recessed for deliberation. Outside, protesters gathered. Former employees. Young designers. Elder seamstresses. Holding signs, "We are the thread." Fair pay, not fame. Eliza stitched hope. 2 hours later, the judge returned. Verdict: partial ruling in favor of Eliza Walker. All IP claims dropped. All punitive damages void. But most importantly, the Eliza Trust for Fashion Labor Equity was approved by court order. 40 of profits. Forever. Signed. Sealed. Irrevocable. Kendra left the courtroom alone. No cameras followed her. But Eliza? She walked out into daylight where hundreds waited. Not for an autograph. But to say thank you. That night, back at the warehouse, the lights were dim. A soft playlist played on old speakers. Eliza stood by the sewing table, running her fingers over fabric. Alexander entered, holding 2 cups of coffee. Congratulations, he said quietly. She shook her head. It wasn't a win. It was a choice. He nodded. Still. You did what I never could. She looked at him. You could have stopped me. I never wanted to. She smiled. Then added, you're free now, you know. He tilted his head. Free to do what? To rebuild. On your own terms. He looked around the room. At the makeshift design boards. The worn chairs. The life they had stitched together. Then said, I don't want my own terms. Pause. I want ours. She didn't speak. She just stepped forward. And kissed him. Soft. Sure. Earned. 6 months later, Walker Atelier launched its most ambitious project yet, the Invisible Collection designed by workers. For workers. 100 of profits to the Eliza Trust. The campaign tagline? Luxury isn't how something looks. It's how someone is treated. And as the world watched, a former maid, once fired for spilling water, now held the fashion world's conscience in the palm of her hand. Not with noise. Not with vengeance. But with thread. Honest. Unbreakable.